You're listening to Winnipeg's Classic 107. My name is Simon Rusnak. Geneva Halverson is a local mezzo-soprano who musically knows no bounds. Leader, operetta, country western, musical theater, it's all fair game to the 2022 WMC McLellan Finalist, who's performed alongside the WSO and the Winnipeg Pops Orchestra and in Manitoba Underground Opera and Little Opera productions. This week, they'll be singing alongside pianist Michael Oike in a solo recital, and to hear more about it, Geneva has joined me in the Classic 107 studio. Hello, Geneva.
Hi.
Wonderful to have you back. Geneva, let me begin by asking, how you doing?
I'm good.
You're good.
It's raining, which is like stating the obvious, but yeah.
Yeah. You know, it feels appropriate given the subject matter of this concert because I'm excited to talk more about this because you're really encouraging us to indulge in our darker side, declaring let there be angst.
Let there be angst, indeed.
Can we start off by talking about exactly that? What inspired this theme?
Honestly, I get a lot of inspiration from going to various performances by going to festival and stuff and seeing what other people are singing and stuff. And I just kind of find it very interesting that there's just a lot of songs about being happy in love. And I just kind of was like, that's not the majority of what I think people are feeling all the time. I mean, I think there's we kind of have the lightness and the darkness in us all. And I kind of find it very interesting that for the most part, when we go to see theater, we're more inclined to want to go see things that entertain us and make us feel really good instead of challenge us or make us see things a different way or give us a good cathartic cry. Like, that's okay. I feel really good after going to see a movie or something that makes me just kind of think about life a little bit or maybe have a good sob in the theater. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, it's refreshing in its own way, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, that idea of comedy and tragedy, and we have both in our lives, right?
Yeah.
And maybe we live in this sort of middle land, but sometimes you really need to embrace one of them. And in this case, you're presenting us a wonderful opportunity to do exactly that. Mm-hmm. And I want to talk more about how you crafted this program because it is a collection of composers, a wide-ranging collection of composers. Can you talk about how you brought these particular musicians together?
Well, actually, the story goes, I was doing a kind of a thank you concert with a little opera company, and Michael Oike was the pianist for that event, and I sang a German Christmas carol that I arranged myself, but essentially I sang in German, and he goes, oh my gosh, I would love to be able to collaborate with you. We should collaborate further because I really want to do some lieder. I was like, well, you are talking to the right person about that. And so the first thing that kind of came to mind was this collection of Clara Schumann songs. They're really self-contained. They're fantastic. They're a set of 6 songs, I believe it's Opus 13, if I have that correct. Mm-hmm. The Opus 13 set, and they're kind of like a 12-minute self-contained little, almost like cycle lit. And they were a project I've wanted to do for a while. And I just kind of thought, well, that's just really good on its own. Like, that takes up a good quarter of the program right there. And I love that within those 6 songs, you have 6 very different moods, even 6 very different colors. It is angsty, but it's also like, yay, springtime flowers, and I love you, and also angst. But that was kind of the first thing in the program, and then everything else kind of was built around that. The Vivaldi, that just kind of came out of the idea that, like, hey, I really wanted to sing some songs where the character is not always mourning and is not always feeling really bad about what's happening to them or playing the victim, but rather getting their own particular maybe redemption arc where they're like, I'm going to get back at you, and it's not going to be pretty. And so these 2 songs the 2 Vivaldi arias are very, I would say, they're dark in their own right, but they're dark like in a kind of calculating Scar from Lion King kind of way.
Yeah. Scar from Lion King kind of way. Yeah. That's a wonderful way to put it. I mean, Vivaldi certainly knew his way around angst. He could write a rage aria, certainly, but he also knew how to kind of give this sort of redemptive strike in his music, and I think that's going to be pretty apparent. You mentioned the leader and Michael Oike kind of coming to you and saying, hey, I'd like to do more leader. You are a past Zita Bernstein winner. Leader comes to you naturally.
It does.
From there, where else do you go with your programming? Because, I mean, obviously that Clara Schumann is something that is sort of a foundational element. Like you say, it starts the program off.
Yeah.
there's some Vivaldi on there that takes us back to the Baroque, and then you indulge in more romantic goodness too, right? Can you talk, for instance, about Pauline Viardot or Pauline Viardot Garcia, depending on if we're using both her names?
Right. Pauline Viardot came about because I wanted to incorporate half the program female composers. And that really became obvious to me, again, after seeing my students in festival and watching all these performers and going out of the practically month's worth of performances I saw. And these are just performances I saw, so I'm sure there were lots of other singers and stuff. But out of the, I would say almost 100 or so songs I heard, one person sang Amy Beach. And that was pretty much all the female composer representation there. And it was kind of really obvious. And it kind of really struck a chord when one of my students asked me at the festival, we're sitting there in the pews, and she goes, "Why is nobody else singing songs written by women?" It's like, I don't know. I actually can't answer that. I have no idea. But you're absolutely right. They should. You're 13 and you're not blind. Yeah. And you can see that there's an issue, and you see that there's an issue at school too, that you barely learn about them. You learn about the great male composers, and that's it. You know, I only learned about Clara Schumann insofar as she's Robert Schumann's wife.
Yeah.
That's how I learned about it in history books. That it's like, not necessarily in university, but definitely like when I was doing piano exams and had to do your like history courses and stuff. Yeah. I'd be like, oh, here's your unit on the Romantic era, and here's your chapter on Robert Schumann, and like a paragraph on his wife, Clara.
Yeah, who happened to be the most formidable pianist of the day,
generation, right?
One of the most important people in music history when it comes to, female writers, and one of so many that have been overlooked for any multitude of reasons.
Yeah.
Can you talk more about really kind of digging into the repertoire and trying to find this music to perform that kind of balances alongside the other composers?
Viardot was a go-to because I thought I literally looked up list of underperformed female composers, and that was one of the first ones to come up. Mm-hmm. And it kind of became a challenge to me in two ways. It was like, one, I was like, I gotta have half this program be female composers. But I also really wanted to challenge myself to sing more romantic repertoire, because other than Rossini, I don't do any.
Yeah.
And other than maybe some Lieder, but even there, I don't delve into Brahms very much, or any Strauss very much, and that kind of thing. So I'm mostly a Baroque and early classical kind of singer. And it is very interesting that Viardot, I was so proven wrong, so lovingly proven wrong, that I kind of always say, oh, I don't really sing that stuff. I don't really do that much romantic singing. I'm not a bel canto person at all. And then I was singing this stuff, and I'm like, oh, this is wrong. I totally can do this. And it worked on a level that it's very hard to describe, because I guess the only way you can kind of describe this is if you've ever sung something that you kind of go, wow, this was meant for me.
Yeah.
This was written by somebody who knew how to write for mezzo-soprano, who knew how to, because they themselves are a mezzo-soprano. And you like look at this music and go, wow, she literally wrote this for herself as a mezzo-soprano, and you go, this is so well written.
Yeah, it just
from my
fits.
voice. It fits so well. It's like, and you get these composers that write these, it's like, yeah, give a baritone songs of travel, and they like salivate because like, oh, it's so well written.
It just works.
It works
just
so
totally
well
works
for that voice.
I mean, there's some wonderful tunesmiths on this program. In addition to the Pauline Viardot, there's also music of Peter Ilyich Tchaikovsky. And one last thing that I want to ask you is, I mean, this is sort of a partnership that stemmed out of this little opera company sort of thank you benefit concert that they had going on. Michael Oike at the keyboard. He's a past Classic 107 guest, great player, just a sympathetic collaborator.
Yeah.
Can you just speak a little bit more to what it's like working with him?
I think it's fantastic, because I used to be a pianist. I still play for my students as much as I am capable, and perform with them. And I think it's really great because we have a lot of discussions about the piano. And we talk about the score as a whole, and we talk about what's going on in the piano. You know, when I work with my other pianist, Renata, it's the same kind of thing. We talk about not just what I'm doing, but what they're doing, because they know I get it.
Yeah. What we're doing.
Yeah, what we are collaborating.
Yeah.
A collaboration.
Yeah,
wow,
look
what
at
a
that.
concept. And I feel like sometimes if the singer doesn't have that knowledge, or it's a rudimentary knowledge, i.e. they've never actually sat down and played the piano part of what they're doing, they don't have a real knowledge of like what is actually going on in the music as a whole, rather than just their individual line and their story, that kind of thing. So those are very interesting. We've had some really neat conversations that way. And And I really like, too, that in a way, when the singer understands what's going on the piano, you read each other really well.
Yeah.
So you have an idea, pass it on to the pianist can feed off of it. It's kind of like I've never done it before, but I imagine this is what performing jazz is kind of like in a very, very small, different way. This is kind of what jazz is like, where they go, here's an idea. Oh, cool. I'll take that and run with it. And here's another idea. And yeah.
It's a conversation,
Yes.
right? And it's a conversation where both of you are involved in
Yeah.
sort of like how we're getting to this final idea. Really excited to see how this all comes to fruition. The concert, 7 p.m. Thursday. It's a pay what you can concert too, right?
Yeah, that means a lot to me because I really wanted to make sure that like anyone can go see it. And I didn't want someone to like not be able to go see it because they don't have the ability to go see it. That's just something that became very, very obvious to me too over the past few years. It's like so much of what I'm doing right now is because I'm privileged to do so, and I see that very readily. Here I am talking about festival again, but if you can't afford the entrance fee, if you don't even have a teacher, you can't enter. And they might say, oh, you can make it in the business if you're just good enough. And I kind of go, well, that's maybe like a very, very, very tiny small percentage of people that actually can apply to. But everyone else, it's like you've got to have a good voice teacher. Not an okay one, but a really good one. You've got to have done the competitions. You've got to have done the rudimentary stuff beforehand and have the resume padded in order to have somebody even look at you to get into a college kind of thing. And I just really want to, in my own way, try and break that cycle a little bit, that it kind of go, well, if I go by, pay what you can, some people will put in a shocking amount and other people will walk in, know that they're not under any pressure to have to give anything and watch a concert and then,
Yeah, be better for it.
be better for it. Exactly.
Right?
Get exposed to it.
So why not make your way down Thursday, 7 p.m. We've got details at classic107.com under the events tab or Geneva-Mezzo, Geneva-mezzo.ca. Geneva, thanks so much for being here.
Awesome. Thanks.